Hi there, welcome back to my channel. It's James here. I hope you're doing okay. So I'm not going to cut all of my plants, maybe a slightly misleading title, but I have 3 of my aroids that are kind of getting too large and I want to snip them back. As winter approaches, I kind of want to make my collection a little bit more manageable. There are some larger plants, not big, but slightly larger, that I would like to make a little bit more controllable, and because I only have a certain amount of space for large plants. Some issues with pests, some issues with things getting a little bit too leggy, and also with one of them in particular, I just kind of want to start from scratch. I'm just going to cut these plants on camera, explain why I'm cutting, where I'm cutting, what I'm doing with the cuttings after I cut them, propagation basics. So I have a very sharp knife. This is essentially the only tool that you need for this. And then, well, I say that, I also have a little thing of water, but any kind of container is fine. I tend to, I've spoken to others before when I'm propagating stuff, if there aren't already, just shaking the knife around, if there aren't already well-established aerial roots, I tend to put the cuttings in water just to give them an opportunity to produce good aerial roots. If there are good enough roots, then I'll tend to just transfer straight into perlite or sphagnum because the plant can get straight on with growing. So there are some examples of everything here. I would not normally be doing this at this time of year. If I didn't have the grow tent that I've spoken about pretty much in every recent video, I would not be doing this. But the fact is that inside that grow tent, the temperature stays relatively stable. It stays around 25 degrees. There's really nice light. There's really good humidity. So at the moment, everything that I've recently cut and am propagating in there is growing great roots, new growth points, etc. So I'm pretty confident that everything will be fine. If I didn't have the grow tent, I would probably leave this until spring. So yeah, just be a little bit aware of that if you're looking to cut anything. If you don't have a really nice, warm, humid, bright space, probably with artificial lighting at this time of year, you maybe want to be a little bit careful. The dog is outside staring at me. Let's just jump straight into this. So I have 3 philodendron that I'm going to cut, and I'm essentially going to cut them right back. We'll see how we go. Some of these are a little bit hard to cut because I've been enjoying watching them grow, but the time has come, and yeah, things always grow back, in my experience. Sometimes bad things happen and you lose stuff, but I'm confident that that won't happen this time. So the first one I'm going to cut is a Philodendron Magnum. So this is, it isn't actually a Philodendron Magnum. It's a no-ID philodendron that I got from a seller who got it from Equigenera. And it's just like, I kind of let it grow a little bit too wild, and I want to reset and give it some good support with whichever cutting seems the most healthy, so that it can produce some slightly larger leaves, because it's kind of just it's going on this trailing root. So I'm going to cut it back, and that will also give me time to find a good location for it, if that makes sense. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 cuttable nodes on this plant. There is a 5th node on top, but generally if a leaf isn't fully emerged, so if it's still a little bit soft, not fully hardened, and it hasn't started to produce any aerial roots around the actual node, I would avoid cutting that, and I'll cut from the node below. Just because they will root, in my experience. Most of the ones that I have cut before do root, but it takes a lot longer because the leaf has to harden. And last time I did it, I very nearly lost the plant, that specific cutting. So I'm just skipping that for now, and I'm going to cut from the node below. My knife, obviously very, very sharp. I tend to use a knife rather than scissors, just because I find that scissors sort of crush the stem, and it's a little bit more likely to get some rot. I've also sterilized this, and I will do in between each plant. So I just have a little lighter, or I do it over like I have a gas hob, so I just do it over that, both sides, and then rinse it just to cool it down, and that's good. We just want to avoid spreading any viruses or pests or anything between the plants. So I will generally cut directly in between the nodes, just so that there's enough space that the rot can, if there is a little bit of rot, it just doesn't go straight into the node. So yeah, relatively easy, particularly with these young plants. Just a little snip. There's node number 1, and stick it in my water. There we go. Ta-da! Second node, very, very simple all the way down. Yeah, some people I've seen wax the open stem on their plants. I really don't do that. I haven't had enough bad experiences with things rotting for it to seem worthwhile. I don't even let things callus over, which is also a popular thing to do. I literally just stick them in water, and they've all been fine. That was a little bit snappy. Yeah, lovely. This is also the time of year when things start getting pests, I find, outside of my greenhouse anyway, because the humidity drops, the temperature drops a little bit. For some reason it turns, I think it's the central heating as well, it turns into spider mite central. So this is also a good way to make things a little bit more manageable on the pest front. So what I'm going to do with this one, this leaf is the one that I want to keep in the pot, so I'm going to let it regrow. I do want to leave a new node for it so that the growth can come out of that, because this node has already produced new growth, and so it's essentially spent. So I'm going to leave the node right above, and I'm going to cut this node here free and have it rooting separately. So this base cutting will essentially have 2 leaves. So this one I will have just rooting in sphagnum. I just have to be a little bit careful as I cut through so I don't cut off the leaf as well. So yeah, little node there that I will root in sphagnum. And this is essentially what I have left at the end. So 2 little leaves, an active node for new growth to come out of, and a really nice established root system inside here. So yeah, that is cutting plant number 1, cut into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like I said, separate nodes. So yeah, put this to the side and we'll move on to the second one. This one is a Philodendron Varicosum that I got from a friend of mine called Chris. I am a bit sad to be cutting this because it's been doing so amazingly, but I want to move it into my grow tent and give this top node a chance to produce some really nice, like bigger leaves. What I'm going to do is this top node, which is producing some nice aerial roots already, I'm just going to cut this off, including the new growth point, so this new cataphyll. I'll root it directly in perlite, I think. And then the nodes below I'll root in water, and like I did with the other plant, I'm going to leave a little bit at the bottom to turn into a new plant. Give your knife a little bit of a clean if you haven't already, and we're going to go straight for it. So top node, I'm just going to cut again mid-stem. I'm sorry plant, you're doing so well, so beautifully. Cut, 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 cut. And this top node is the one that I'm going to be, oh, that's so sad, it's doing so beautifully. Look at that leaf, it's amazing. This type of Varicosum is just so incredible. So I'll put it in water for now, but I will be moving it into perlite very quickly so I can have it in my grow tent, give it a chance to make some bigger, more beautiful leaves. So let's just untie this from its support. This is kind of similar. I had it in not ideal conditions for a little while, so it got a little bit leggy toward the base. I probably should have attached it to a pole much sooner, and obviously the leaves would have gotten bigger faster, but here we are. Second mid-stem cutting. Boom, this is going to be another water propagation. Beautiful leaf, very nice. Third, how many have we got? So 1, 2, 3. Opa. Oh, that philodendron smell is amazing. If you've ever cut up your philodendron before, you know what I mean. It's kind of like a piney smell. It's super nice. 4. And ooh, almost cut through another leaf there. That's great. 4. Number 5. And I'll probably, same as I did with the other one, leave 2 leaves at the base just so that the new growth is nicely fueled. So yeah, this is what I'm going to leave at the bottom. I'll put this back in my smaller greenhouse, and then everything else, all these nodes that I'm trying to root, I will move into my grow tent in water. So second plant, cut up and propagated. Beautiful, look at that. Ugh. It's not fully hardened, so it probably wasn't an ideal point to cut it, but I had to get it done. So there you go. Final plant for today. So we have 2 prepared trimmed back plants. And the third one I'm going to be cutting today is my Philodendron White Knight. This has got some incredible aerial roots, so a bunch of these nodes I'm going to be, if I wanted to, I'd be able to pot straight on. What I'm going to do here, because again, this leaf is relatively new, the node below it, so not the node that leaf is coming from, but the node below hasn't started producing any aerial roots, I'm going to cut below. So essentially, this cutting will have 3 nodes. So let's go straight for it. Again, there's a little bit of a chunkier stem here, so I'm just going to have to be a little bit careful. Normally when I do this, I'd lie the plant down and cut onto a support just so that I can be really precise. So hopefully this is going to go okay. Yep. Oopa. Did I cut anything else off? No, I didn't. There we go, cutting number 1. Aerial roots there, in my opinion, are big enough for me to put it straight into perlite, so that's what I'm going to do, because this is the plant that I'm going to continue growing on. Yeah, because hopefully it won't interrupt its growth pattern too much, already having aerial roots, like I said. So that can go to the side, because it's a little bit big for the water. Second node down here, this one has really good aerial roots that have already fed down into the soil. So I'll cut it off and then I'll kind of tease those roots out just so we can have a look at them. But this is another one that I will be able to pot up immediately. Oh, that smell is incredible. Da, da, da. Yeah. So as you can see, it's got some really, really nice roots there. So that I think I'll put straight back into some soil. Not incredible variegation, but it's just a very pretty plant, even if the variegation isn't really, really striking. Lovely. Look at that pink tip to the root there. Cute. White Knight number 2. Number 3, this is another one with good aerial, I mean, all of them on this plant actually have pretty decent aerial roots. So I'm going to cut down mid-stem. There's actually an aerial root coming out of the middle of the stem here, so I'm going to have to cut. I'll show you in a second. Oh, it's always so fiddly. Don't want to hurt anything. Let's put that under. Getting some sap on my fingers from this. So nice diagonal cut to try and avoid that aerial root. And here we are. So again, I'm going to have to uproot that, but this is another one that could go directly into soil. So there you go. Really, really pretty. Nice. It's super satisfying when a plant is like very aerial root happy, if that makes sense. Like it produces a lot of aerial roots because it's so easy to propagate things from that. The inside of the stem in this is incredible. Like it's like deep red, kind of amazing. And again, that smell. Here's another one that's rooted down into this potting medium. These are essentially all going to be cuttings that I will be able to start growing immediately, which is super exciting. Yeah, that's a really nicely established root. So we've got 2 more nodes. Oh, I love this plant so much. I'm sad to be cutting it because I would like to get it bigger, but I just don't have space for it in the current environment it's in. It's in the top of my greenhouse, so I have like you've seen my grow tent, I also have a smaller greenhouse and I have a large greenhouse. And in that small greenhouse, this one is in the top shelf and it's reached the top and all the leaves kind of are getting pressed up against the top. So I just want to stop that, basically. Give it a chance to kind of reboot from the base and also have these propagations to turn into larger plants and also to sell on or trade on, because this is turning into quite an expensive hobby. So I've spoken about this before, but part of the way that I fund buying new plants is just by cutting and selling plants that I had before. That's some lovely variegation in that leaf, that's really pretty. So yeah, I'd probably put this in water just for a little bit to give it a bit more chance to root there before I pot it on. So I'll just put that in the water there. And there we go, so this I think has 4 or 5 nodes because the stem goes quite deep into the soil. But yeah, that is what we have left, a little dead leaf there, or dying on its way out, and 2 leaves left like that. So that's it, basically. I've got 3 plants now that are smaller and more manageable that I can keep in the space that they're currently in. And then I have a bunch of propagations that I will have in my grow tent. So I'll probably keep the tip cuttings of all of them to turn into sort of my mother plants again. So I'll have this one as my White Knight mother plant. I have this one as my Varicosum mother plant, and I'll have that other tip cutting of the Magnum as my mother plant for that one, depending on how well they do when I'm rooting them. Yeah, I thought this would just be interesting because I do a lot of propagating, I do a lot of cutting. I think it's one of the most cool things about aroids, just how easy they are to propagate. Yeah, I'll definitely be swapping, sharing, selling some of these at some point, so keep an eye on my page, and I will maybe do a little giveaway with some of these propagations, because I definitely have more than I need here. If you have any questions about propagating, please let me know, and I will help out if I can. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to see updates on these plants, on these propagations, on any of my other plants, check out my Instagram @slugplants. I post there semi-regularly. And like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to my channel if you do want to see more like this, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you very soon. Goodbye.